It is 4:30. Can start the meeting.
Okay. I'd like to call the Sugarland 4B Corporation meeting to order on Wednesday, July 19th, 2023 at 4:30 p.m. The next slide, please. Citizens who desire to address the City Council Board and Commission with regard to matters on the agenda will be read or received at this time. Is there anyone?
No, nobody.
Okay, we can close that. Consideration of an action on the minutes of the June 21st, 2023 meeting.
Move to approve.
Director Jacobson, and Director Atkinson second. So,
Yes. Yes.
Director Kurt.
Yes.
Director Lane.
Yes.
Director.
Yes.
Director Jacobson.
Yes.
And the motion carries unanimously. Next item is workshop review of and discussion on the proposed budget for the Sugarland 4B Corporation for fiscal year 2024. Tyson Lopez. And Elizabeth. Present.
Good afternoon. I just want to introduce Tyson. He is with our budget and strategy department and is here to present the budget for y'all. Justin, I know we met with the subcommittee 2 weeks ago and so Tyson's here to represent the Justin and the team. A lot of hard work we mentioned it.
Great, welcome Tyson.
Thank you. Can I advance the slides from up here? So like she mentioned, my name is Tyson Lopez with the Budget Department. I know it's a shorter meeting, so I'm going to go through it relatively briefly. On the agenda today, I'm going to go over the current year FY23 budget and projections, the FY24 budget, which is budget for next year. We'll touch on a couple of the capital projects that are slated for next year, and then a long range forecast. And we'll touch on a long range forecast and the assumptions that are encompassed within that. Real quickly, first slide here is on sales tax performance year to date. Roughly year to date, we're 10.9% over budget, which is a great thing. June, we came in 2% over budget. You're looking at the green line for actuals and the blue line for the budget. As long as that green line is over the blue line there, we're doing good. And so I would also say that this slide represents the importance of our financial management policy on sales tax and the policy for the 4B Corporation, which we'll touch on in the future slides. But all in all, we're good as far as the main revenue driver for the corporation. All right, so FY23 revenues. Projections are roughly $590,000 over budget, which we developed a projection for the current year end by adding the year-to-date actuals, which is the green line in the last slide, and adding the remainder of the months for the year, which is the blue line. And so again, we've been coming in over the budget all year, so we're higher there than what we originally budgeted. Interest incomes, the next big variance, $280,000 over what we originally budgeted. Really, that's driven by two things. When we originally set the budget, portfolio yields on our cash and investments were much lower then, and they essentially doubled on the 4.25% as of where we're at now in the portfolio. That's great for the corporation and the city overall. The third one assignment, we're still projecting that at budget. That's simply the reimbursement on the debt for the Texas parking garage. The third three, Imperial redevelopment reimbursement, is the reimbursement we received at the beginning of this year for the agreement with the Imperial redevelopment district. That's also not going to change by the end of the year. And lastly, miscellaneous income, 10,000 over budget, which is driven by the parking lot lease over at next to Constellation Field. On the expenditure side for this year, there's no anticipated change versus what we budgeted by year end. Economic development program, we expect to come in at budget. As well as the incentives program budget for this year. Of course, that includes the $1 million payments for the AAA Actors Agreement and the $37,000 Lifestyle Center Sales Tax Performance Agreement. Debt service for the one outstanding bond issue for the corporation will come in at budget. And the reserve for opportunities we're flowing through at 3 million, although year to date there hasn't been any reallocation of use of that budget. The transfer to capital projects for 4.5 million consist of what was originally budgeted of 875,000 plus the recently approved land acquisition for 3.6 million. And lastly, the transfers to other funds out of the 4B Corporation Fund, which consists of the cost allocation overhead to the general fund, the salary reimbursements for the EcoDev staff.
Bring the mic a little bit closer. All right, you're on top.
Better? Worse?
Okay.
Good, okay. Where was I? So yeah, the salary reimbursement for the staff, the EcoDev staff that is budgeted in the general fund. And $250,000 transfer to the Public Arts Fund, which was recently established. Are you good, Councilman?
I'm doing all I can to hear a single word you're saying. You just keep going. Don't worry about me.
All right. There's a way to turn.
You're the
this thing on.
quietest talker I've heard in a while.
Sorry.
Fender on that microphone.
What's that?
Don't worry with it. You just do your presentation.
I mean, I can hold this thing like Bob Barker, but does that help?
We're good. You keep
Perfect.
going.
Yeah, Public Arts Fund. So that was, I can hear myself now.
Yeah.
You got to really put this thing.
That's
Okay,
good.
perfect. So Public Arts Fund was previously up until this year a transfer to general CIP, but we set it aside in a separate fund starting this year, so that way we could better track the expenditures on public arts projects. So quick summary, the variance between budget and projections leads you to $890,000 over or increase in net income compared to the budget. There isn't going to be any changes to the accrued sales tax nor the debt service reserve by the end of the year. That $890,000 flows down to the ending fund balance, which gives you an ending fund balance of 9.8 million. That's 8.7 million over the policy requirement and giving you a bond coverage ratio, roughly 4 times coverage. I'll just remind you that the policy requirement for the corporation is dictated as 15% of the originally budgeted sales tax. So we're in good hands there. Any questions on the current year before I move on to next year's budget? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On your, it said Public Arts Fund, is that what that said?
Yes, ma'am.
Public Arts Fund. Okay, so we're gonna go into next fiscal year's what we're going to put in public arts. Is what you're leading into, correct?
I'm not
Okay.
sure I understand the question. So
I guess where I'm going with this is, we have the museum, the art museum here in Town Square. And I met with them and they're really excited about doing something really special in Town Square. But they were having some, needing some funding to get those things done. And I don't know if that was something that would be a part of that category of the Public Arts Fund.
So we have been budgeting funds through the capital improvement project. So whenever the bullet point above that says CIP consists of a budget of 875,000. We used to budget public art every year in a CIP because
Okay.
they are capital assets. But it was really difficult to track because every fiscal year, some projects took longer, some projects were bigger, some were smaller. They were all different kinds of values. So what we did was starting this fiscal year, we created a public art fund. So the dollars are can only be used through the way, like still have the 4B restrictions on them.
Mhm.
They are just in a different account. Now, instead of being associated with the CIP, they're now just in a separate fund that has its own maintenance. If that makes sense. But we can talk about the art center later. We've met with them. They actually received $50,000 from us during COVID. That's how they were able to do the build out of that space. So,
Okay, yes,
and then one of the big restrictions of 4B is that we can't pay for maintenance and operations. So that's why you see us like with Public Works. Every year we put in $200,000 into their road maintenance. They choose certain projects. It has to be completely new construction, completely new projects. We can't come in and just maintain things.
can't do the M&O from this funding source, okay.
Good. Okay, so, geez, you gotta really have this thing close. So next year's budget, FY24, on the revenue side, as of right now, well, let me back up. So what we like to do is look at what the prior year's long-range forecasts encompass for in this case, FY24, and compare that to what we're budgeting and estimating for the budget this year. So that's the comparison here. On the sales tax front, compared to where we thought we would be last year in FY24, sales taxes continued to perform well, and that variance is roughly $250,000 over the prior forecast. Interest income, same thing there. Portfolio yields have gone up. So the budget estimate follows that increase. The TERS 1 assignment, we don't expect any change there. It's pretty straightforward. And on the miscellaneous revenues, no change there as well. So that leaves you on the revenue side compared to where we thought we would be a year ago for in FY24, roughly $500,000 higher. On the expenditure side, we don't project any changes in the economic development program, nor the incentives budget. Debt service, again, for the one debt issuance for the corporation will be budgeted for whatever the cost is that year. And reserve for opportunities, we're going to up that 1 million compared to what we forecasted a year ago for FY24. Capital projects has a meaningful increase, $2 million for the Brazos River turnaround project, which we'll touch on in future slides, and transfers out for, again, the cost allocation and the salary reimbursement with a de minimis change around $20,000 difference. That leaves you of a variance around 2.9 million higher than what we previously forecasted on the expenditure side this year. These are the capital projects that make up the budget next year. The joint participation in CIP, I believe that's through parks for the projects that they do throughout the year with community. The landscape replacement for the major roadways, and the big one coming up, which is the Brazos River turnaround and alternate roadway. And in summary, so I'll just highlight the net income variance, roughly $2.4 million lower than what we had previously forecasted. Again, mostly driven by the Brazos River turnaround and the R4O increase. Slight changes in the accrued sales tax and the debt service reserve. giving you an ending fund balance on the budget estimate of 5.9 million, which is $3.4 million lower than what we had forecasted last year. I would just point out that you're still $4.8 million over the policy requirement of 1.15. So,
Director Jacobson.
yes, sir.
Is any of that $2 million for the turnaround reimbursable to the state or federal?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
I thought I had a slide. Two slides, but yes, short answer is yes.
Okay.
So just quickly on the long range forecast update on the sales tax side, it includes 3% growth in FY25, 3% growth in the years beyond that out to FY28. Those are dictated by our financial management policy for the next year, which states that we need to take the lesser of the February CPI for the current year, or 3%. Just for reference, February CPI was 5.2%, and that dictates us taking 3% there. And in the out years, 3 through 5, it states that if the CPI is positive, we take the 3% growth. The remaining assumptions built into the long range forecast. First one, the assignments ending with the last payment for the garage debt in FY25. There's a reserve for opportunities budget of roughly, it's right at 20 million across the entire forecast in the out years. On the incentives front, the final payments of the AAA Astros agreement, of which 2 million is going to be next year, or in FY24, and 10 million in FY25. And CIP, it's just the Brazos River turnaround, which is on the next slide here.
Tyson, the incentives with the Astros, it's just, we're not paying them. It's just the things that we need to do to Constellation and different things like that. Is that right?
I believe so.
Right, Elizabeth?
It is a repayment. It was part of our lease negotiations whenever we became their minor league baseball team.
Mhm.
So they committed to investing a certain amount of money over 5 years. They've already well exceeded that amount that they were supposed to reinvest into the stadium with us. And so this is our partnership of us taking some of that cost and helping them
Got it.
through it. So that we have, this year's the second to last payment, and then our last payment will be next year.
And it's back to them. They
Correct.
had
It's straight to
Got
the Astros, Sugarland, LLC, I think.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Real quick on the Brazos River turnaround, Economic Development Department and Engineering are working with TxDOT and HGAC to get funding for the improvements necessary due to the permanent closure of the roadway. So in FY24, the total cost to the city is estimated to be around $4 million for the design, which the city would need to pay up front. And so we've been told that the reimbursement we could receive, it's written here as a minimum of 3.2 million, but up to 100% is possible, and that we would receive that reimbursement somewhere around FY27. And in FY25, the cost to the city would be $5 million for the construction portion of that, based on the 20% of the estimated $5 million total cost for that piece of the project. We are planning to split those costs and reimbursements 50-50 between the 4A and 4B. So the 4B isn't taking on the entire 4 million. In this case, it's going to be 2 million, which you'll see on the next slide, and 2.5 million estimate on the construction side. Does that answer your question, Councilman? Excellent.
Question is the expenditure simply to close the turnaround? That's what I just heard.
I might have misspoke. The turnaround has been closed And so the expenditure is for the
To reopen.
fixing to reopen it, correct? No?
So the turnaround's been closed, permanently closed. It had significant damage. They've tried to rebuild it a few times. It keeps getting eroded with the Brazos River. So this project is something we were working on. We actually had it in our budget probably 3 years ago. And then between TxDOT and the Houston Galveston Area Council, they kept changing the dates and deadlines for projects. So we ended up taking it out of our budget. But this would be several different projects where there are improvements that TxDOT is already making. They're past us in their design phase. They're making to 59 to make it more secure so that if the Brazos River does continue to move in either direction, that we have some safety on 59 that will be okay. But then for us, what we're coming in and partnering on and kind of going in with their project with them is that they will be building some roads through the University of Houston. And for us, from an economic development perspective, it's important because not only does it allow more accessibility and improvements to the Crown Festival Park, it also opens up the rest of the parcels of land on UH. Because right now they just have that main entrance off of University. And then there's a little one I don't think a lot of people use off of the access road. So it's adding another entrance and exit from the University of Houston. And then for us, they have about 40 acres of land that are on adjacent to the access road that face 59 that they are hoping to build industry partnerships is what they call them. So for us, it's like the opportunity for the business park, like for us to be able to land additional businesses that will partner with the university. So it's opening up a lot of options, and then engineering can speak better to this than I can, but there's some improvements to the underpass on University and 59. Like I think we're gonna do a triple left turn underneath. And so when we do have these major events, we'll just have the ability to move traffic a lot faster. So I don't have all the details on the non-UH side of things, but there are some other little things like
That's
that.
good. Thank you.
I have a follow-up.
Yep, Director Lee.
Do we have any renderings so far with some potential designs of that
For UH,
for the TxDOT for 59?
we are following the UH master plan that's on their website. But we have entered into a memorandum of understanding probably about 2 years ago with them that we would follow those roadways that are already kind of been pre-designed. And we would follow University of Houston standards, like certain size trees and different infrastructure that would go in with the road. But as far as like hiring a company to design it for us, that has not been done. That's what this would be.
Got it.
But I can get you a map of what is in the memorandum of understanding.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. A few more slides. This is the 5-year forecast for the CIP. Again, the annually recurring landscape and the joint CIP going out each year, and the SL4B's portions in FY24 and FY25 for the UH alternate roadway.
Quick question. I thought I heard earlier that there was an expected reimbursement from TxDOT in year 27. Will that come back into the 4B funding or not?
Yeah, so the reimbursement will be split equally for what the expenditures were from each corporation. This is just the expenditure side for the CIP. It
Okay.
doesn't
Got it.
include the reimbursement revenue side. And through the slide up there for the debt service for the 4B corporation. I got at the end of FY23, there's roughly 19 million in principal remaining on the outstanding debt, and the total debt service through maturity totals 23.5 million. So I think that principal is wrong. And lastly, the summary for the SL4B 5-year forecast. I'll just point out the net income. Again, this is a forecast, so it's subject to change next year. But FY24 and FY25 net incomes are negative. primarily driven by the AAA payments and the CIP funding for the Brazos River turnaround. Although in FY26 through 28, we are forecasting a positive net income again. And your ending fund balance goes anywhere from in FY24 that 5.9 million to the lowest in FY25 2.2 million, and it rebuilds back up into FY28. Throughout the entire forecast, you're over policy, and your bond coverage ratio is good throughout the forecast as well. So, questions? Good. Excellent. Thanks.
Thanks, Tyson.
Thank you.
All right. We're moving on to the quarterly report. Review of and discussion on fiscal year 2023 third quarter report. Chandler.
Hi, so I'm Chandler Rolfus, Economic Development Coordinator. For the sake of time and
Bring the mic close.
for the sake of time and the fact that we have the quarterly report printed out for you, I'll just touch on a few very quick stories. So really touching on, as you can see, we went through a few conferences in the quarter three, including the Bio Conference in Boston. And then community development staff went to the Strong Towns and Congress on New Urbanism Conference. And there's some more information in the report about that. So I want to give an update as well on, first, I want to actually give an update on the economic and urban design study that's going on with Stantec. So this quarter, the city of Sugar Land and Stantec entered into an agreement to perform an economic and urban design study on track 5, which is the 83 acres around Smart Financial Center. With recent ownership changes within track 5, staff thought it was necessary to consult with a third party to really see and establish a new vision for this site, and that really establishes market feasibility and the best way to use it. The track 5 study will be completed in August, and it includes collaboration with key stakeholders and resident focus groups. And it's really a tool just to better understand what the market is deeming feasible and where potential gaps in funding, where public sector support might be needed. And then we will present the findings of this study soon to the boards. I'll give you a quick update on Great Homes. So Great Homes continued through quarter 3 as a successful program supporting residential reinvestment throughout the city. To date, 166 exterior home improvements have either been completed or ongoing throughout the city. This totals to about $2.7 million in total home improvements. And I'm also going to tell you that applications for this program have closed on July 18th, which was this past Monday, as all reimbursement incentive funding has been either committed or paid out. However, the design program remains open, and Sugar Land residents can apply for discounted home design program, the design through the program as well. Cool. Ron did an amazing job with that.
Yeah, what is the average subsidy? Is it 10% project? 15?
I believe it was capped at 10%.
There were about 165 projects. For each of the projects, the average reimbursement amount was about $3,000. The average project cost was about $16,000.
Additionally, I'll move to some of the marketing successes. So Economic Development and Visit Sugar Land teamed up with the Space Cowboys, Public Works, and other city departments in co-branding vehicles to really generate more brand awareness for the VSL brand, as well as raising water conservation awareness in the community. You can see some of the examples there with the vehicle in the Public Works building. And then on the event side, we're happy to announce that in the first week of June, news broke nationally through the Houston Chronicle that the Crown Festival Park will be hosting. It'll be hosting Honeyland, which is a conference, and it's a first in Texas festival celebrating Black expression through food, drink, and entertainment. Actually, as of this morning, it was featured in Billboard, announcing some of the acts and chefs that will be there. And go check it out on our LinkedIn page for sure. And then kind of in conclusion, I can give you a quick market update. So of our three major markets, which are office, industrial flex, and retail. So our office occupancy stayed steady in Q3 at 83%. That's kind of actually a little bit above the national average, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic. Industrial flex occupancy also stayed steady, but increased slightly to 97.9% in Q3. So we have a pretty healthy industrial market in Sugar Land. And then the retail market followed the same path. Really, all of these are staying steady, which is a good thing. And it was at 95.7% in Q3. And then hotel occupancy, heads and beds classically, that increased slightly to 63.1 in Q3. But as we're in Q4 now, we expect to see an increase as we're entering peak season during the summer. Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions? Sorry, I had to, it was a abbreviated version.
That's fine.
Just a quick question on the industrial occupancy, if you got 97.5,
Yeah.
to me that says, we don't have enough.
Yeah, we need, we honestly need more. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Chandler. Now on to the director's report, Elizabeth.
I'm going to keep this really short because Chandler stole all my news. So just really quick, DCI did some great posts for us on LinkedIn that highlighted our staff that we've got. We also got a top ranking of number 5 of livability entertainment stories. And so that was a really good ranking for us that we were the top 5 in the country. And then Honeyland, in case you didn't see, please go on LinkedIn, help us share our story. We've got some great people here that are always liking and sharing our stories with us. But they announced Mary J. Blige as one of the main acts. And so that is really big and exciting for us. We are really, really pumped about it. It's a 2-day festival that will bring potentially 30,000 to 50,000 people over the 2 days. So our hotels are going to be full. Our restaurants are going to be full. You might want to go out of town if you're not going to be there because it's going to be busy. And then recently, we're really excited. Chandler had a great picture of the Space Cowboys wrapped vehicles in the building. But we made the Chronicle. And so for us, we're just continuing to keep Sugar Land in the news. And that's a big success for us. So between the Forbes Star, the Community Impact, the Chronicle, HBJ, we've been in the news. And I don't remember if we announced it last time, but Alba was nominated as one of the top 50 economic developers in the whole country. And so we're very proud of her. And then Devin was also recently recognized as an emerging leader with Red News as a female leader. So our team is incredible and they're doing a lot of great stuff. So let us know if you have any questions, but have a great afternoon.
Brad.